Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this morning's panel on mental health and wellness. My name is Marshall Miller. I am the event coordinator here with the KU Career Center. We are so excited to have all of you today. If just to kick off, if y'all would go around and introduce yourself, say your role, where you work, and just tell us a little bit about yourself as we kick things off. Whitney, why don't we start with you?
Apparently I'm the problem child to start with, but thank you for your patience. My name is Whitney Schneider. My husband and I own Schneider Fitness and what is called Condition House. Condition House is our health collective, which hosts the gym that we train out of, as well as other trainers and other health practitioners such as massage, chiropractic, physical therapy, and yoga. I'm currently sitting in the yoga room. KU grad from a small town in Southwest Kansas. And, I've just got a passion for health and fitness. And I'm really just grateful to be pursuing that passion here in Lawrence now.
Awesome. Mckee, you're next on my screen. Why don't you tell us a little about yourself?
All right, my name is Mckee Olalde, and I am a registered dietitian. I work as a study coordinator at the University of Kansas Medical Center here in Kansas City, Kansas. And I grew up in the area and went to K-State for undergrad, and then went to KU Med for my grad school, and I've just been there ever since. So I really like the research field, and I work with kids in elementary school, so helping to build healthy behaviors at a young age. Really enjoy what I'm doing.
Nice. Connor?
Hi, I'm Connor Wykoff. I'm a licensed master's level social worker at Burt Nash Community Mental Health Center in Lawrence, Kansas. I primarily work with adults, so just 18 and up, anyone of any background, anything going on with them. I work with a few adolescents as well, and from time to time fill in with the crisis team and get a good variety with that. I went to Stephen F. Austin State University for undergrad, and I grew up in town about half an hour south of Dallas, and then came to grad school at KU in 2016, and then graduated, got a job in Lawrence, and I'm still here now.
Awesome. And finally, Jenny?
Sure, yeah. My name is Jenny Mckee. I use she, her pronouns, and I work at Watkins Health Services, which is the doctor's office here on the KU campus. My work there is to help to provide prevention health education for all KU students. And while we can talk about anything health related, we spend most of our time doing education on nutrition, physical activity, sex positivity, alcohol, cannabis, and then self-management, which is kind of like identifying stressors and sources of anxiety, and then identifying healthful coping mechanisms. I've lived in Lawrence for just over 20 years, two-time KU grad, and a native Kansan. I really enjoy being here and serving our students.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for being here. We really appreciate it. And I know our students appreciate the wide variety of viewpoints and experiences that y'all have. I've got some prepared questions that we'll go through, and students, feel free to comment on Facebook or YouTube if you're watching this live, if you have questions, and we'll try and get to those if we have time at the end. Any one of you feel free to pop in if you have an answer you'd love to share. But starting off, Mckee, I'll pick on you first. What drew you to the field of dietitian and nutrition?
Yeah, that's a great question. And first off, I have loved and always loved food. So that's a big bonus. But I grew up in sports and always had a passion for the health field. I also loved science and math in school. That combined with the health field nutrition was a really good fit for me. So just a lot. I enjoy working with people a lot. So just combines a lot of my passions within one career.
Nice. Connor, what about you?
I really just kind of fell in love with psychology classes in college. It was really interesting to me and kind of came easier. And I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. I enjoy this. And yeah, then took abnormal psych and was like, okay, I want to work with people with different disorders. And so yeah, it's kind of just a self-interest thing. And then helping people is awesome too. So that's just a bonus.
That's awesome. Whitney?
Well, I was an athlete in high school, and I got injured my senior year. I spent a lot of time in physical therapy, so I thought that physical therapy was a route that I wanted to pursue. And when I started getting into it, I enjoyed it, but it just wasn't enough. So then I thought I wanted to be a strength and conditioning coach, and I actually interned with Andrea Hootie at KU for longer than necessary. But I stayed on for about 18 months with her, which was good. It was a good learning lesson for me because I found out that that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to work with the general population versus the athletes. And so I started personal training and haven't looked back.
Nice. And what about you, Jenny?
I had a fantastic weightlifting coach in high school who really opened my eyes to the possibility of taking something I was interested in, health and wellness, and putting it into a career path. I majored in exercise science, find out very quickly I did not want to do anything with that. And so went on to a degree. I had no intention of working at KU after being there for 6.5 years going to school. So this career that I have right now is totally accidental, but a very happy accident. I was not a very healthful college student. And I can talk more about that if people have questions. And so the last thing I wanted to do was to work with people like me who didn't make the most healthful choices. That being said, it's turned out to be a really organic fit. And I really do like working with people who have some stumbling blocks along the way. That's actually one of my favorite things.
Awesome. And this is a question for all of you, and I'm really interested because I bet you have a wide variety of answers because of the wide variety of roles that you have. But what are some of the common misconceptions people have about your work and like what you do on a day-to-day basis? Whitney, I'll start with you. When you're telling someone, oh yeah, I'm a personal trainer, I own my own business, what are some of the things that they just instantly assume that you deep down, you're like, actually, that's not what it really is like?
That I work out all day. That's all that I have to do.
For sure.
Which is not the case. I do make time for it just like anybody else, but that, and then also that I get to make my own hours. And while some of that is true, you're working around other people's schedules. And starting out for my first 3 years, even owning my own business, I was working 7 days a week, from 5 a.m. often until 7 p.m. So mostly just that, I just have this fun gig, which I love, but it's not just a lot of playtime in the gym.
For sure. Connor, what about you?
I think people, including myself, underestimate the amount of paperwork involved in mental health therapy, and just kind of the variability of the work. I think, when I tell people that I'm a mental health therapist, they think that I, sit and talk to people every hour all day, which is true for a good majority. But if I have any cancellations, I have, intake assessments put on my schedule, and or if I'm free, I'm helping out with, someone coming in crisis, and there's a lot of moving pieces that come together.
Absolutely. Mckee?
Yeah, when I tell people that I'm a dietitian, I often get a range of reactions, but or quite often people think that I write meal plans and or I just work in a hospital. But there is such a range of settings and different areas to help people within the dietetics field. So yeah, definitely don't just sit around and write meal plans all day.
For sure. And finally, Jenny?
Yeah, I'm going to answer that question. But first, I just want to say hi to my friend Whitney. I keep on looking at her, and we haven't seen each
I
other.
miss you.
So hi, I know I miss you too. Okay, so misconceptions. What I think when people understand the work of health education, or I think they understand health education, they go to a place of like, oh, you're the fun police. Awesome. You don't want me to eat this. You don't want me to be drinking or partying. And I can't have sex with whoever I want to have sex with. And you're going to tell me what to do. And that's really the opposite of prevention health education. My job is to simply give individuals fact-based information so they can make the best health-related decisions for themselves. And what's most important about that is it comes with from a social justice lens, and it also comes from a place where there's absolutely no judgment about that. It might be a different, choice than what I would make for my body at this place in my life as a 38-year-old human being. But if there's no judgment, I can't have an expectation about what someone else's choices are going to be. So once we get to that spot, then I think things, go really smoothly. But that's the biggest one, is like, it's almost like being, people think that you're like a priest and like they come in for like confession. They're like, oh my God, I did this thing. And, now you're going to get mad at me. And that's not it.
Absolutely. What what would y'all say? Obviously there's the education that y'all took, whether it's specific classes or a master's degree or something like that, that helps you get to the role that you're in. But outside of, coursework, what are some of the skills that you found over, the time in your position that have been really important to be successful? Things that, whether they're people skills, things you picked up along the way, or maybe it's a separate, what you thought would be a minor class turned out to be, oh, I needed to know accounting backwards and forwards. Like what are just some of the skills that you didn't really expect to need that have ended up being crucial for success for you? Connor, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think just being flexible and being able to stay calm, cool, and collected with that variability in the workday, and then a lot of collaboration with different people at my agency setting, and with collaboration, communication for sure. And then as far as, the paperwork, time management definitely ties in a lot.
Is there a lot of paperwork in your position?
Yes, yeah, there is.
I gotcha. Awesome. Mckee?
I think for me, just you mentioned that having the people skills, but also typically, just generally speaking, dietitians tend to have type A personalities. So just being very well organized, detail oriented, as well as a major passion to help people and help people where they are too, striving for improvement and not perfection for the people that we're assisting.
Okay, awesome. Whitney?
For me, it'd be business management and communication, which I took 0 of in college. I took all science classes and education classes, but nothing whenever it came to business and talking with people. Luckily, there's kind of like an innate ability, I think, for the communications portion of it. But I mean, I didn't know anything whenever it came to running my own business. And certainly doing it with a partner, which is my husband. And it's certainly a learning curve. And I wish that I would have had, I wish I would have been better prepared for that. But the beauty of it is that you can seek out other resources and figure it out.
Sure. And Jenny?
Yeah, so depending on where you work, unless you work for yourself, one thing that I was really unaware of, just being like in my brain, is just like, I think about things from the standpoint of this would be the best thing for the student, this in a perfectly just world, like this is what, we should be doing, and this is the service we should be providing. This is the direction I think we should go. Unless you're running your own show, I was woefully unprepared for how I would need to collude with the organization that I work in order to get what I think needs to be done, while also meeting the needs of the organization and the people that are in charge. So being a really, really good listener, understanding the mission, the vision, that way I could get some of my needs met on, the education I wanted to push, while also meeting the mission and the vision of the organization. So that was an interesting thing for me. And because I also hire students, I also think it's important to mention that just a really deep work ethic is at a premium. So do the little things that other people aren't, thinking about doing. Like, it happens all the time in my job of, oh, you don't have to do that. You don't have to schedule your own meetings, or you don't have to lift that box, or you don't have to do this stuff. I think the more that, you show up and do those little things that other people aren't doing, picking up that piece of trash, folks notice when you are there 100% as much as you can be on a given day. People do notice that. So that's something that I always pass on to students is, have a really rich work ethic and be willing to do something that maybe you don't like doing, because people notice when you do that.
Awesome. And so I'm curious, all of you really, your job at the end of the day is helping people in some form or another. And I'm curious if, what are some of the challenges associated with that? What are some of the benefits associated with that, as a student, you just might not know about, when you're just thinking about what I want my career to be. Because, I imagine that you get a wide variety of experiences and interactions with students. Jenny, let's start with you. I've been ending with you. We'll start with you this time.
Okay, no worries. So a couple things there. And the first one is one that we don't talk about very much is helpers, or I was never talked to about this a lot with helpers, but you're not going to like everyone that you're helping. There are some people who values wise, or maybe their breath stinks, or maybe they are just cranky all the time, that it's hard to find joy and love in that person, because when we help people, we give a part of ourselves to that person. We put ourselves all the way out there for them, and it's difficult to make that happen when it's someone that you don't like. And that's okay. You don't have to like everybody. That's okay. So that's, one part of that. I thought so much about that, and then I kind of where I was going. So super Michael Scott moment. Okay. So
that's all right.
I wish people would have talked more about with helping is truly having a healthful self-care plan that's realistic for yourself. Because when you start in your career, you might have all the energy in the world, but between really rough days, crisis kinds of situations, or just the monotony and burnout of paperwork and doing part of your job that you don't like, you're going to need a self-care plan. So pace yourself in your work, make sure that you're making time for yourself, and find a mentor or some kind of clinical supervisor, if that's the line of work that you're in, to make sure that you're talking with them about what you're seeing in your career, your profession, because we all have those people. I have someone I talk to every week about being a healthcare practitioner in the way that I am. So I don't know. I guess those are my thoughts.
Awesome. Anyone else jumping in?
I think just, being creative. I work with a lot of people with very different backgrounds from myself, and people come in with problems that I've never experienced or never, really had to think about solving those problems. So just being able to, listen and meet the client where they're at and be empathetic and get creative with solutions.
Yeah, I'll pick it up. Sorry, go ahead, Whitney. Okay, well, I'll piggyback off of that and say that I think that as Connor mentioned, there are so many different circumstances and so many different, particularly surrounding food. We all come from different places with that. And there is also so much that's being broadcasted to us and things like fad diets or things that we see on TV or that we're reading. So really trying to get at the root of it may not be food, but it might be something else that people are dealing with that is leading to a certain relationship or a certain tendency with food. So having more of a holistic perspective on things as opposed to being narrow-minded for a potential easy solution.
I gotcha. Whitney, go ahead.
Well, I think we're all really just talking about communicating with people. Like that's kind of the tough part of it, and learning how to navigate different behaviors and the appropriate ways to communicate with individuals to get to the particular goal. And that's certainly the case for me, which is also kind of fun because there ends up being this self-reflective portion of it of, okay, well, how can I do better and what can I challenge within myself to, have a productive outcome, not only for me, but for the client or people that you're working with. So I think really just learning how to navigate the communications.
Awesome. Well, we've had a couple interesting questions coming on the chat that I want to address. And for those of you who are watching live, definitely feel free to comment. And, we'll try and get answers to them if we have time. If not, we'll always follow up with you. We talked a little bit about this earlier with some of the misconceptions, but I think especially for Jenny and Mckee, but all of you, I think people are kind of interested, just like describe, what a typical day does indeed look like. That, Whitney, you mentioned how people just assume that, you just work out all the time and are, just, getting to make your own schedule. And Mckee, you said how people always think you're writing meal plans all the time. So Mckee, let's start with you. What does a typical day look like for you? And if there isn't a typical day, maybe, just describe what your day is going to look like for the rest of the day or something like that.
Yes, I can tell you that my typical day is nothing like what I imagined it would be when I first started. I do a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of spreadsheets. It's a lot of emails. So much communication, whether that's texting or so my specific role, I work with a lot of families for a few studies, but so it's making sure that those measures are complete for our study and following up there. I also do a lot of health coaching for my job. So working on a more individual level. So yeah, I would definitely agree that there is not a typical day, and it could be things like putting packets together one day, and it could be things like meetings all day another. But I do very much value and appreciate the variety. I will say that. I'm never bored.
Awesome. Jenny, what about you? Your title is program manager. And so I imagine you get to touch a lot of different things in your work. Tell us a little bit about what a student could expect from a typical day in that sort of role.
Yeah, if you asked my 14-year-old who, we work together at home now, with he being at school, he would just tell you that I talk a lot all day. So that's my typical day, is talking, apparently. So when I started in the health education resource office at Watkins, I started as a health educator, and my days are dramatically different now than they were then. In my role as a program manager, I look at the health deficits of KU students. And I also look at where we're doing really well health-wise, and that helps to determine the kind of programming that we do to our community. So every 2 years, we do some research, the National College Health Assessment, actually, and that kind of lines out what we need on our campus. And so looking for innovative ways to program, trying to get to as many people as possible. And sometimes that's in a social media capacity, which obviously right now is really amped up. Sometimes it's doing active tabling, giving presentations. So a lot of program planning in different stages happens on a daily basis. But as a manager, I do supervise 3 professional staff members, as well as form student staff members. And I was really unprepared for how much of my day in a supervisor position was communicating with my staff to making sure they have the resources they need in order to be as successful as possible. So if folks are interested in supervision at any part of their career, I'd strongly encourage you to talk to people that you like being led by, or that you feel supported now, and ask them how they do that, how they make that happen. That way you can replicate that and put that in your toolkit for your career moving forward. But a lot of meetings, there is a lot of talking. I also have the fantastic opportunity to teach. So my day-to-day is working in higher ed is still on that Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday schedule. And I work a lot at night too. So it's just, it could be anything day to day.
Whitney or Connor?
Yeah, I start most of my days somewhere between like 5 and 6 a.m. So like I said, it's before the average person has to get started. And then I come to, after I get my children settled, I end up coming to work for a few hours. But within that time, there's also not only training, but there's social media management. Since we now have what we call a health collective, there's checking in with those practitioners and how they're doing, how we can help them, move forward. And then now that we're at home, I'm also doing homeschooling in the afternoon, coming back to work in the evening, back home, for dinner, whatnot, kids to bed, and then it's more work on the computer. So it never stops. There's also times in between where you're checking on clients, how they're doing, how they're progressing, why they didn't make their workout that day. So it's a lot of management. But truly, I think like if you're taking care of yourself and you have some schedule, it's all manageable and totally doable. But also being able to roll with the punches, because those things happen, like an AC going out, or those, whenever you own your own business in this field, it's certainly something that like you don't call somebody else, you're the one that takes care. So it's, like I said, just a lot of management of not only work, but life. And for me, most days are about the same. It's just a lot in one day.
For sure. Connor, what about you?
Yeah, for me, my day typically starts at 9:30. So I work later in the day so I can see people after like a typical 8 to 5 work schedule. And I also have some flexibility in my scheduling. So I work like 9-hour days Monday through Thursday, and then a half day Friday, which is something that I chose to do and is nice. But there's other people that work more typical like 8 to 5 schedules. So flexibility with that. And then as far as a typical day, every day I see people for individual therapy, and depending on the day of the week, I might have a group therapy that either I typically do, or I'm covering a group therapy for someone else who's out, or doing an intake assessment, or going to meetings multiple days a week as well.
Awesome. Well, and Mckee and Jenny, I have 2 follow-ups for you two, because we had another question on the chat. Would you, and Connor and Whitney kind of alluded to this. Would you describe your schedule as flexible? Do you find you have, because I think one of the, at least for me, I know that, some of the misconceptions people have about very people focused jobs where, you are really ultimately helping others at, to borrow Whitney's phrase, it never ends, that you're just constantly working, that, you're busy all the time. And so like, do you find you're able to make time for yourself, for your family, hobbies, volunteering, or is it, what sort of hours and time commitment do you find you're spending in your roles?
Yeah, I can start that off. So for me, I have definitely learned to protect my time better. So making sure that I do have time for myself and so that I can be the best when I'm doing the things that I'm doing at work. With that, and I think that most in research could agree with this, but that it ebbs and flows. There are some weeks where I'll easily put in like 50, 55 hours a week. So it's not as much with Whitney where I'm there and it's constant like that, where we're picking up on things there. But it's more commitments in the evenings at that time. I do have weekend commitments. But then with that, I have flexibility where I can take off a Friday afternoon or finding other ways to make time for me outside of work. So I hope that answered it.
Yeah, absolutely.
If folks are, concerned about flexibility within their workday, regardless of the field that they're going in, I always tell students who are preparing to, interview for jobs or they're looking for a career path, if that's what you want, if that's what matters to you, then when you interview for a job, asking questions for your potential supervisor or for HR about like, what does flexibility look like here? Or how do you ask your potential staff members to take care of themselves and honor their time and themselves while they work for you? And if they respond like, what are you talking about? Or, we work 70 hours a week all the time, then that might not be a good fit for you. So that's a really great place to start, because I think that in whatever field you work in, it's all about a fit in the organization where you work. And I've been so lucky, accidentally, essentially getting the job that I have to have had the same supervisor for the past 13 years. And she believes in me taking care of myself and taking care of my family. Being a single mom, is a really important, it's made it even more important for me to be able to manage myself through the concept of time and make sure that Arlo's memory of me isn't just like she talked a lot and worked a lot, right? So that being said, even though my supervisor wants me to be able to have a flexible schedule and take care of myself, I am a yes person and people know I'm a yes person. And so I get asked a lot of things, and it's really easy for me during certain times of the year, again, being on an academic schedule at the beginning of the fall semester and at certain parts in the spring semester, where I really can put in 65, 70 hours in a week, being everywhere I need to be because of that time of the school year. And then, like Mckee said, it's what that means is me taking some half days the next week or, a little bit further down the road. So flexible schedules and flex time is becoming more and more popular in the workforce. And, talk to your prospective HR or supervisor about what that looks like in that organization, and that will give you a really good idea.
Sure. What would y'all say is one of the biggest challenges that you face on a daily or weekly basis, or what's just, hard about your job? And, it can be in a good way too, just because it's hard doesn't mean it's something you don't look forward to. It can just be a tough problem that you're having to face. But, what sort of common themes come up when you think about your job in terms like that? And I'll put it to anybody. I won't put you on the spot this time.
I think at first, as a young clinician, it's easy to kind of get frustrated when you feel like, I'm doing a good job and laying everything out, and then client's not making progress between sessions. And just kind of, I think it's a balancing act of reflecting back on, okay, what did I do? What could I do differently? And then just meeting the client where they're at. And, maybe they're still kind of ambivalent about their goals, or they're not ready to make changes yet. And, just kind of sitting there with that, and not getting too caught up on pushing for progress too quickly.
I can go.
Well, I think most people in my role, go ahead.
That's okay. Sorry. Go ahead, Whitney. I'll go next.
The actual physical activity adherence and living the healthy lifestyle that everybody wants to is actually a lot more work than we think. For whatever reason, there's a variety of those reasons. So it's challenging that like I really want these things for my clients, and then I don't get that same that same intensity back. And I think the best thing that I can do, or really the only thing that I can do, is one, be the example, and two, just be there to listen, and provide the appropriate feedback. And that's where it comes back to like the communication thing, and knowing that each person is different and they respond differently. So being able to navigate that, it's a challenge, but it's also a blessing. So I enjoy it.
So this is kind of like a big picture-y kind of thing. The longer I've been in my profession, something I've had to confront more and more frequently is that healthcare in this country it's political. It's built on a platform of patriarchy and racism and systemic violence and oppression, which makes my job really, really hard because I want to be able to provide healthcare to everyone. But when we start thinking about who healthcare is available to, sometimes it's just really difficult for someone to get in my door to see me because of their prior experience, their access to healthcare, as children and as, human beings in this world. So, constantly thinking about how the people that need our resources the most, the folks with the most marginalized identities, the most oppressed people, they're the least likely to get in the building to see me or to see anyone else who works at the health center. So trying to, dismantle some of those systems that keep people away is, I think, the most frustrating thing that I work with. And then when you compound that with working on a college campus, which is also a system that, works best with, privileged identities, just complicates it even more so. So when one of you all figures that out, let me know, because I need all the help in the world making that happen.
One of my biggest challenges, and I think I alluded to this earlier, is really debunking some of the myths or things that people believe about health in general, as well as nutrition specifically. Oftentimes families will come and say, my aunt's neighbor tried this new thing and it's worked great and it's life-changing. So really trying to steer people towards research and science and what we know to be true. But once again, meeting people where they are and understanding that we all come from different backgrounds. And so I would agree a lot. I can't remember who said it, but listening is so important. And being able to decide where to go after hearing what people have to say.
For sure. Well, we're starting to wrap up and I want to be respectful of y'all's time. So once again, thank you so much. I have two final questions for you. First, what, you guys have already given students great advice here, and they're going to be better for it. So thank you. But if there was one thing that you could tell younger you, knowing that you're going to end up here, is there that piece of advice that whether it's professional or personal, what's something that you wish you had known when you were an undergrad that might have smoothed out some bumps in the road or something like that?
I think I said something about this before, but just kind of balancing that, what I did and if I could do things better, and just accepting that, I'm going to make mistakes, and that's, how most of us learn, is by making those mistakes. And yeah, just not expecting to go in and fix everything, but to go kind of stumble around. And, the sooner you make those mistakes, the sooner you learn from them. So not being hesitant to try things that you haven't tried, but just diving right in. And then when you mess up, you can say, oh, well, this is my first time doing it, and that's okay.
I mean, I would kind of go off of that as well. Like, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to fail. It's going to happen. I've failed a lot, plenty times, both in school, both in life, and also work. It has all been worth it. They've all been lessons learned, and I'm better because of it, both as a person and a business person. So
I think for me, and looking back to undergrad, I put a lot of unnecessary stress and pressure. There was one semester that I thought that I was going to graduate with 4 degrees. Like, just in I was going to be there for 6 years, and I look back and I'm like, what was I thinking? I don't need to do everything perfectly, and I don't need to be interested in everything, and that's okay. So just self-reflection is a beautiful thing, and not putting undue stress or pressure, at least was something that I wish I would have known.
My goodness, the teacher in me hates myself for even thinking about saying this. And chill out on your grade in classes, just a skosh. In interviewing for jobs and interviewing students and professionals for a job, I have never been asked about my grades, nor have I ever looked at someone's GPA. What I look for when I'm hiring people, and what I think people, not that I haven't looked for a job in a really long time, but the interview questions that I was asked, or if people are trying to figure out if I could do my job or not, or if I was going to be a value added to that organization, was what kind of experiences have you had that would help us out? So when you're thinking, reach the goals you set for yourself academically. Of course, I want you to be proud of the work that you do. And when you're building out your schedule, if you don't have to take 17 hours, maybe build in an experience, something that is going to enrich your life and be a value added back to the community that you're currently living in. Whether that's, doing some volunteerism or going somewhere or learning a new skill, just trying to find other experiences to enrich your life. I wish I would have known that for sure. I missed out on a lot of things, not realizing that it was going to help me so much more down the road.
For sure. Awesome. Well, and final question, what is your favorite thing about your job? And maybe your job isn't the most awesome right now. That's all right. But, what are the things you generally enjoy? Want to leave on that positive note that, you all picked these roles for a reason, and students would love to hear why.
I'd say getting to know people that, I probably would have never met outside of my role at work, getting to form relationships with them and see the progress that they make over time, and then learn from them myself.
for me, it's 100% my workout time. Like, I train people all day long, and I see them pushing themselves physically and mentally, and really just working hard. So I kind of get that itch for it. during that time. And it's also super motivating and inspirational for me. So whenever it's my time to work out, like that's my time, that's me time. And it's also go time. And I can, leave feeling, replenished actually, although you might be depleted, I'm full.
Yes, I would say my favorite thing is establishing relationships with families. And I just had a health coaching session this morning with a 7-year-old boy who's really been struggling. And he just had this aha moment of like, oh, so this is what nutrition is, and this is what it's doing for my body. And so it's amazing to me, especially for those at a young age. This stuff is going to continue to carry through for the rest of their lives as well. So I love working with families like that, as well as they teach me so much as well. So all of the above. I would echo what everyone else has had to say so far.
I love that kind of like aha moment that you loved today, Mckee. That's one of my all-time favorite things. It's, I get to be with someone like in a moment, like at an event or during a presentation, but I also get to, teach people. So I have the honor of being with them for 16 weeks for a certain period of time. And I tell them when we are in class that for all intents and purposes, it might be a short relationship, but that's what's happening right there. And it's up to them when class ends, if they want to continue in a relationship with me. And, one of my favorite things of all time is when someone chooses to continue that relationship and they're, now an ER doctor, or they are, nutritionist or a therapist or a health coach. And, they email me and say, hey, remember that one thing that we talked about? Can you give me more information about this? Or, I'm thinking about interviewing for a new job. It's just that someone beyond, the confines of how we were together chose to continue to involve me in their life. They trust me. And there's that mutual respect for one another. That's honestly makes the rough days a lot more smooth.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for participating. This has been fantastic. We really appreciate it. To the students who are watching, if you have more questions or you're wanting to, learn more about the awesome careers that these wonderful individuals have, definitely reach out to the University Career Center, and we can help you in that process. Thank you all so much, and we appreciate it.